distribution section of xTuple. And what we're going to be covering today is what is ERP and why do I need it? ERP in a nutshell, or what is it defined as, is enterprise resource planning. So what that means is it's pretty much everything that you need to conduct and operate your business on a day-to-day basis inside one system. And ERP is all about the process. So accounting software and POS systems are not ERP. So a lot of these systems you see out there like QuickBooks and that a lot of people may be using accounting softwares and maybe a POS on the front end, but most of them wind up having an extremely large hole, and that hole is for inventory. And inventory is the largest asset that a distributor has. So managing that inventory and delivering that material winds up being critical. And a lot of people who are just coming up through distribution and have smaller companies, they may start off with something like a QuickBooks or just a POS system and find that as they start to grow, they quickly kind of lose control of their operations and their processes, and it gets in the way of what they need to do. So that's where ERP comes in. And xTuple is a fully blown ERP. And I noticed before we started the webinar, we had a question from Mosey that says he's new to xTuple. And that's perfectly great, Mosey. We're going to see if we can't cover some of that for you today. Now, xTuple ERP is a full-blown ERP. So what I'm going to do is we're going to close the PowerPoint for a second and jump over here to the desktop. xTuple ERP comes in 3 different versions. You're going to get Postbooks or a distribution version, which is what I focus on, a manufacturing version, and you can also get a version known as Enterprise, which is all in, has the manufacturing and the distribution in it. Now, what you're going to find is even distribution has some light manufacturing, and that light manufacturing can be leveraged by distributors who are looking to do value added, and that may be from kitting material to maybe even doing some type of light assembly, just anything that helps you expand your niches and really lock in your clientele. So to answer Mosey's question, what modules are available, inside of xTuple, you're going to find a full-blown accounting system that has AR and AP. You're going to have a fully integrated CRM that's built into the ERP. You're also going to have everything that you need for sales order entry and sales order processing and warehouse controls, along with purchasing, and if needed by some distributors, maybe even some light manufacturing. So all of that comes in the ERP built in as one. So that's kind of the difference between what you see as far as some of these accounting softwares. If you're just running accounting software, odds are, you may have very good control on your books, but once you start to scale your distribution company, what you're going to quickly run into is you have to control and manage that inventory. That inventory is your largest asset, and in real estate, they've got a saying that says location, location, location. In distribution, we say items, items, and items. So if we return to our PowerPoint over here, you'll see that distributors' needs vary per vertical. So some distributors may be like myself. I come out of 20 years of background in the electrical distribution environment. Now, electrical distribution tends to be a little bit more complicated than most of your average distribution outfits because they have such things as spas, and we have a spa package just for that. But some of those things are kind of critical. Then you may run into other different sections of verticals of the market, like plumbing, who deal in a lot of commodity type items that they buy from multiple vendors, or HVAC, which may have vendor-specific material that you carry. So there's a lot of different needs in the vertical distribution, and those vary. And we are well equipped to handle a lot of those different verticals outside of the box. We even also have customers that are closely aligned with the made-to-order, like hydraulic distributors, which buy all of their components, but every sales order they do is a manufactured item that they put together. And there's not a lot of ERPs out there in the market that can handle a lot of these verticals with that much control and ease. So controlling your inventory is a prerequisite for leveraging it. If you're in distribution, then you're going to have competition from big box stores, national chains. Odds are you're going to be a small guy and you're going to be in a certain market. And your relationships and your inventory is going to be the factor that kind of keeps you in the game. So if you want to leverage that inventory in your market, the first thing you have to do is have a nice control on your inventory so you're carrying material that is going to generate you revenue, you're going to fill the needs of your customers, and you're going to be able to grow in your environment. So distribution, it's all about the supply, right? So your inventory behavior should be molded to the supply chain requirements. And what that means in a nutshell is form follows function. Depending on how you operate and how you need to deliver it, that is kind of how you need to mold your items. Now, this next one, this could very well have been a saying that I said to another provider when I was working in electrical, where we offer that item as drop ship for that warehouse. We send a PO only on Tuesday, and if we meet prepaid freight requirements. So you can have different locations that the items behave differently in that location. Maybe you don't want to stock them in that location. Every time you do a sales order for it, you want to do a drop ship PO to the vendor. So you never want it to touch your dock, you want it to go straight to the customer. Or it may be an item that you replenish from your main warehouse and you're doing hub and spoke, where one different branch does centralized purchasing and shoves it out to the others. There's a lot of different ways that you can configure your items, and in distribution, that's going to kind of be the mold of what your processes are. So what I'm going to do is we're going to jump back out of here, and we're going to go look at some item setups and config so that you've got an idea of how you can shape your items to behave the way that you need them, and hopefully mold them to your supply chain requirements. So if I jump over back to my xTuple ERP, we can find our items under products, item, and list. If we go inside of here, I'm just going to pull up an old SQD Q0120 circuit breaker, which is a standard one in electrical. Of course, you may have a lot of other items that are much more similar to your industry that you may want to think of. But inside of this item, we're going to have like the item master. Now, this is going to be base information that's going to work across all warehouses, all sites for your item. So that's item information that does not change, that's fairly static. Now, underneath that, we may also have a warehouse configuration. Now, inside the warehouse configuration is where we can really get in there and mold and shape exactly how our item's going to behave, not only as we get ready to reorder it, but how it operates inside of sales order entry when our sales guys are ready to purchase it. So over on the right-hand side, under the item site record, this is where you're going to find the behavior for purchased items. You can see this item is set, that the site can purchase this item. Once you check that, it's going to make these other options available. So what we can do is we can create a purchase order, request for work order requirements, and that's normally for made-to-order type people. That would be verticals that set closer to the made-to-the-order more than pure distribution. They may actually be added, doing value added on it, or assembly, or some type of light manufacturing to create that item. Or it could be a custom item that they're creating. Now, the next option we have is create purchase requests for sales orders. Now, what a PO request is there's two different ways to fill the supply from a sales order in xTuple. We could do what's known as PO requests. If you're doing PO requests, then we're routing all of those requests through purchasing, and purchasing, for lack of a better term, blesses those requests and physically adds those to purchase orders. So if your purchasing department is in 100% control of all back orders that are made, then that's probably the configuration option that you want to do. That's going to route everything through purchasing, so they have total control over everything that's ordered. Now, a lot, especially the smaller distributors, as you start out in distribution and your outfit is, say, under 20 users or so, you're going to have a lot of people that wear a lot of different hats. When that happens, a lot of those type of distribution outfits may allow their sales guys to do some of the purchasing or manage their own back orders. If your sales guys manage their own back orders, then odds are we want to just create a purchase order linked to the sales order. Because what that's going to do is it's going to create a physical link between the purchase order and the sales order, and anytime you get ready to go back order that item from a sales order, you can click that link and view that purchase order, and from that purchase order, you can also go back and view that sales order. Now, some of the other options that we have is, like the question that I asked, is we only drop ship this one from that warehouse. Well, we can set it and make it to where this thing automatically drop ships every time it's ordered. Now, I'd want to use that option if I don't carry it on the shelf. I never plan to carry it on the shelf. And every time my sales guys order it, I want to create a purchase order. Now, another option that you're going to see in distribution, and this does not apply to post books, this does not apply to manufacturing, but it only applies to distribution. If you're inside distribution and you have the stocked setting flag checked, then what that's going to do is it's going to determine if these are optional. Because if I check stocked, what I'm telling the system is I plan to stock this item. I should have this material on the shelf for my sales guys to sell it. And if you do that, then when the purchase order or the PO request, whichever one you choose in your configuration option, will become optional during sales order entry and not mandatory. If I uncheck stock and I created the purchase order link to sales order and check drop ship, then every time that item was added to a sales order, it would automatically generate a PO. And then that PO would be set in an unreleased state, awaiting for someone, either purchasing or the sales rep, to release it to the vendor. So that's some of the configuration in just the sales order entry side that you can do with the items to kind of mold them to it. Now, on the buy side, I've got a totally different set of behavior that I can do. And underneath the planning, I could turn around and do hub and spoke processing where I say, this warehouse doesn't carry this item. I want to create transfer orders, and I want to bring them from a certain warehouse. So you can configure that and set that inside your items as well. So the buy side can be highly configured as well, along with not only what we call MRP. And MRP is just simply a program that you can schedule to run that's going to find your material requirements. And that's like a safety net that you run up underneath it, because we may configure this to do PO requests, we may configure this to drop ship, we may have a lot of different options that we set this item to over here, but we also want a fallback position so that purchasing can monitor those items. So if we run our MRP and we had our purchase order linked to our sales order, but we did not have enough material to fill it, and the sales guy did not create a purchase order, then MRP planning will see that, and it will grab that and add it to normal inventory requirements. And the purchasing agent can also see that that is a demand-driven item on a sales order, not a planned order. A planned order would be more for inventory. So not only can MRP check these reorder levels and bounce off of them, but it also works as a backdrop for our sales order configuration, so that even if these items aren't covered and filled by some type of demand, that we will pick them back up. And that's the kind of thing that it gets a little bit complicated into how you set yours up. But once you understand what the system is doing, then you can get it to really work for you and leverage this so that you have very good control of your inventory, and it's operating just in the manner in which that you want. And we can also use, things like multi-location control on top of that to make it easier for the warehouse to find these items, derive where they picked from, set defaults. So a lot of this can go very much to the bone, and that's the kind of thing that you're not going to see out there in accounting software. It's not going to give you serial lock control, warranty type information, multi-location control, really managing that inventory that you have out there. That's kind of one of the weaker links inside of a lot of those kind of packages. And it's a huge step up for a company to come from an accounting type package into a full-blown ERP. And it takes some planning. It takes a little bit of background. It takes a little bit of understanding of your overall processes to incorporate a lot of this into what you need to do. So if we jump back over here to our PowerPoint slide and we take a look, we've got you covered. As you can see, inside of that item configuration, we can change that behavior and mold it to really what you need to do. And there's other steps, not only from the way that our package is open, and you can actually go to the bone of how everything works inside of there, and it comes with things built into it like the report writer. So if you need custom reports, the architecture is already there. Those, some of those reports to be custom may need to be developed, but the framework and structure is already there for you. So that's some of the stuff that you get with our ERP just kind of right out of the box. So distribution, inventory management, tune your demand to your supply chain and you will be better positioned for growth. If you're a small distributor out there and you're just running accounting software and you finally land those larger customers, you reach the point to where you're growing like crazy. You need to deliver material from it. If you fail to execute, you may lose those key customers that you have worked so hard to build. So the earlier you can get an ERP and a comfortable structure underneath you, even if you're a smaller distributor, it's going to put you in a good position so that when that business does arrive, you're prepared, you have your system set up, you're structured the way that you need to be to deliver for your end customers. So distribution is all about shoot, move, and communicate. That material must flow. You must feel that demand. If you don't feel it, the competition will. So having this stuff keyed up and structured right so that the material just flows, sales guys just enter their orders, purchasing can get views into exactly what's going on. They can see exactly what they need. Now, I mentioned earlier something that we call MRP, Material Replenishment Planning. If we go back and take a look at the purchasing side of this, notice I say that safeguards to ensure material requirements are filled during normal operations. Once we have demand and your sales guys enter orders, that demand needs to be filled. That is the #1 purpose of a distributor. That's what needs to happen. If material falls through the crack, if things don't happen the way that they should, then your customers may wind up going to your competition. So what I'm on here, and let me show you where I went. I went in, you can get there from the purchasing, PO request, through the desktop menus, which are just commonly used icons. And if you're new to xTuple, like Mosi, you may want to browse the desktop. Mosi is going to give you a great overview of the flow, and you can also see a lot of the most commonly used icons. As you get more comfortable, you may want to jump to the top menu to do the deep dive, and underneath there we can get the PO request by purchase, purchase request by planner. Now, if we go do it by planner in distribution, the reason why I like this is we added the ability to sort by vendor. So what that's going to do is if you have multiple sales guys out there, they're hammering orders, you're getting demand, some of it's being filled by inventory, some of it not so much. You need to get that material coming. You need to know about it. Coming to your PO request, you can see what your MRP scannings are bringing back, and you can also see any demand that's out there for sales orders. But what we do is sort them by vendor. So what we essentially do is just group these by vendor. Now what this allows you to do is when you're ready to cut these orders loose, you can either release the items one item at a time, or if you get enough, because you can have your freight allowed amounts. And what a freight allowed amount is for a given vendor, he may give you a deal that if you do a PO worth $1,000, he'll pay freight. So freight allowed just means that the vendor will pay the freight. If you have those, you can configure that on your vendor record. Once you do, it will not only show up in PO request, but also on your purchase order, just as a quick reference guide so you can see the amount of your current PO request and what that freight allowed amount is so you know when you can release it. Now, you may release these on different schedules. Some vendors may have like a Tuesday afternoon cutoff for you to receive the material by Monday. And that's something known as lead time. And that's some very pertinent information that you need to know. And it'll also kind of drive when you do your ordering, because a lot of your customers will try to get out of any freight charges if they can. And so it's your job as a distributor to also get out of those freight charges and try and shove them back to the manufacturer. And so if you can get those freight allowed amounts and load them up on your vendor and use them for quick reference, it'll be very helpful in kind of getting it so you can go. Now, once we've got all of our items in here grouped by the vendor, I can either release these one at a time and just onesie-twosie this out, or I can right-click the whole vendor line and just release all the items from it. I can also right-click the vendor line and just run a quick MRP check just for that vendor. And so when I select run that MRP, what it's going to go out there and do is it's going to check and see, was there any sales order? Was there any unfilled demand? Was there any material that I was lacking that would pick that up? If there was, if somebody just entered an order and there wasn't enough material to fill it and it was for that particular vendor, it would have added it to it. So that's just a quick check you can do right before you release and create that PO, just so that you get it all in one fell swoop. And it just kind of helps you manage that process. So if we wanted to release this for this vendor and we click on release, it's going to, if this was multiple items, it would release all of them. It will go ahead and generate the PO. And the PO will show up in what's known as an unreleased state under the PO screen. So all I did was just go to the desktop and I went to POs. You can also get there by purchase, purchase order, list open. It's both the same screen. And underneath there, you're going to not only get the total weights for all your items, but the freight allowed amount as well as the PO amount. So you know if you're making freight allowed. And this will be the last point at which you will review a purchase order before you release it to a vendor. Now, this is where xTuple differs from a lot of different ERPs that are out there, because our purchase orders can have two different states. An open state, which means that I have sent it to the vendor and all I am waiting on is receiving. So releasing a purchase order marks it as open, and it also makes it available for you to receive it. An unreleased one means that you're still building it. So if I was sitting here and I did a purchase order currently, and I had SO linked to PO, and my sales guys did a purchase order for Square D, right? And they needed some material to come in and back order it, it would automatically get added to this open PO here. Or at least it would prompt them in sales order entry, and they would get the option of either adding it to this PO or creating a new one. Of course, if they wanted to ride on this freight allowed, they would try and add it to this purchase order here. And that's exactly what we want them to do. Now, once we mark it as released, then sales will no longer add to it. If there's any more demand for Square D, it will start a new purchase order. And I may leave that purchase order out there for 2 to 3 days to build up that demand and attempt to make that freight allowed and not pay that freight with the vendor when I actually ship it. So that's kind of an overview of the purchasing process and some of the things that you can do in it. Of course, we could get highly detailed as far as how you can manage those overall processes, how you can run that MRP and schedule it, get it to actually perform exactly the way that you need it to. But in a nutshell, that's kind of the ERP overview of how all of that works. So I wanted to save at least about 15 minutes at the end to see if we had any questions. I know we've got a new user out there named Mosey. So let me hit you with this. Do we have any questions out there? Anything that I didn't cover that you may have specifics on, or any type of verticals that you may want to see a webinar on, or a section you may want to see a webinar on? And Mosey, did I cover your question as far as the different modules and how all of that works? So I'm trying to get to the notes. Do we have any questions out there, Eli?
What's up?
Yeah, do we have any questions out there? I know Mosey had one before we started, but I'm trying to find it. There it goes. We can click on it. Oh, yes. Okay, thanks, Mosey. I see that we covered your question. I see that we got Bruce out there. Glad that you could make the webinar as well, Bruce. Now, some of the other things that we may do for more specific verticals that may or may not apply to you, we've had a lot of different verticals kind of utilize some of this stuff, and this is something that we developed specific for the electrical distribution, which is spas. But underneath purchasing, we do what we call contract pricing, and that houses spas. So we've had other distributors that actually use this because they may use some type of contract pricing where they have an agreement that is good for a certain amount of time or a certain amount of material. And you could set up those different contracts in there. Now, if you're an electrical distributor in particular, you're going to use something known as SPAs, and SPA just stands for Special Pricing Agreement. And the way that those work are, the vendor will say, if you sell it to this customer at this ship to, I'll give you this cost. So you essentially set up a contract that may list all of the different costs that you have for that item. And then what we can do is use that cost in the sales order as a basis of cost when you get ready to process that order. But if you're using normal contracts, then you just do the purchase order at that cost. If you check SPA here, then we're going to do what's known as using the end of stock cost or your normal cost for the purchase order, and you do a claim back report at the end of the month, which gets you that special pricing back. That's where the term special pricing agreement comes from. Some verticals use this. I found it mostly in electrical. It's a highly complex subject, and it just kind of demonstrates xTuple's capabilities of extending out into those verticals and giving them very specific tools to fill the needs inside of those verticals. Now, you can also buy such add-ons as XT Connect, which can embed email inside the ERP, which is there's one of the few add-ons that doesn't come with it out of the box, but it extends the capabilities tremendously. Some of the other things that you can do is schedule your MRP, and if you schedule it with XT Connect, then you can run it on the hour, that kind of thing. Now, some of the stuff that we do with average costing inside of items differs slightly from the manufacturers. Because as you know, xTuple essentially has two types of costing for our items. We can have what's known as a standard cost, and if we have a standard cost, then on the item itself, it's going to show up underneath the costing tab. So if I go back and I open up my little Q0120 item, you'll see the standard cost underneath the costing tab for an item. Now, this is normally for manufacturers who roll up their costs. Now, this is where we kind of get it a little bit differently in distribution because you get your cost from your vendors. So we have an external vendor catalog for distributors. And the way that that works is you can reach out and convert items on the fly. So when you reach out and grab those items and bring them in, if they're average cost items, we will bring in the cost for it from the catalog and set that up as the cost. And that's kind of what you think the cost is. Then as you do purchase orders for the items and you receive the item, there's a trigger in receiving that as soon as you receive it, it's going to update this actual cost, right? So The way that an average cost item works is if we have a quantity on hand, it will take the total value of those items. If we bought it 3 times at 3 different prices, it's going to sum up those costs and divide them by the quantity that we have to determine our average cost for that item. But if we get ready to back order that item and we don't have any on hand and it's average cost and we don't have an average, we don't have a cost. So what the system does then is fall back to the standard cost. That's one of the reasons that during receiving we will update the actual cost, and so that kind of lets you know how's my driving. The vendor gave me this cost, I updated it in the catalog updated all my items throughout the ERP, even my e-commerce if I have that enabled. Then when I receive it, that kind of verifies the cost. So I can see what I'm receiving it at, and I can see what what the cost the vendor gave me, and I can see if that's trending, changing, should I be updating something, is it dead on, does it match my average cost, that kind of thing. So that's what that's for. And you can actually even use the roll-up that the distributors use with xTconnect so that your average cost periodically automatically updates your standard cost, and then you just kind of have a check and verification as far as your cost goes. But you can also source these items from multiple vendors. So you may have costs that never winds up matching what that actual is because you buy it from 3 different vendors. Wherever you get it the cheapest, it's a commodity item, and then you just average it out in the wash. But having that visibility into what your last receiving cost was also will let you kind of monitor those costs and see exactly what's going on there, so you know where you're kind of trending at. All right, so I want to check back out there. Modules, where's the main modules? Both deal with customers. Oh, what are the difference between CRM and social modules? Oh, good question, Mosey. The way that the ERP works is it comes with a built-in CRM. So this is the CRM module, and module is kind of an elusive term, mostly because all of this stuff comes with it. What you'll find with xTuple is everything that we use to build this software comes with this software. So when we sell you the software, you literally get not only the code that we created, but all the tools that we use to create that code. So if we jump over here to the CRM is fully integrated. And the way that it works is you'll have accounts. Those accounts will have contacts. Those contacts will have address books. If I open up any given account, my accounts may be employees, they may be customers, they may be prospects, they may be vendors, they may be sales reps. They can be a variety of different things. And in order to turn them on to it, because I could just check the box that says vendor, and if I click on vendor and open it, it's going to go ahead and create a vendor account for that customer. So then I've got a vendor account for it. But they're tied to it directly. So the social media that you see inside the desktop down here mostly, what this is mostly for internal communications. It gives you like a built-in IM inside the ERP. So this is mostly where you can monitor things that people have changed, modified, updated, so you can see what's going on. You can do system messages between different people inside the ERP, that kind of thing. While the CRM is more customer-facing and vendor-facing, for you to manage all those activities with anybody outside of your organization. So your social desktop is kind of a misnomer. It's for social interactions inside your organization, while CRM is more outward-facing, even though you do have accounts for all your employees. That allows them to have to-dos, have things assigned to them, that kind of thing. So CRM incorporates everything, and social is more just for communications. So because this is tightly integrated, if we're sitting on the CRM and it's a customer, we click on customer, it'll take us over to the customer record. And it's the same kind of thing that if I'm on the customer record, I click on the account and it takes me back through there. Now throughout the ERP, you're going to see all of these kind of same structure here mostly, where you're going to see headers up top, different types of configuration and or information in the tabs that are organized into different sections of the ERP. So we try to remain consistent across that, and it'll look the same from a lot of different places. And you'll also find that if you're in certain places, you can do certain things. If I'm in sales and I go look at sales orders, not only can I look at any sales orders that I have, let me open up a customer that I have some for. This is my cash customer accounts. So if I'm sitting inside of here and I open up their customer record and I go to view all those open sales orders in there, you can do all of that not only from the same place inside the ERP, but when you're sitting on there and you're viewing the sales, the quotes, the orders, not only can you see what's out there, but you can create a new one from inside of there. So if I click on a new one inside of there, you'll notice that not only will it go out there and open up the sales order and populate it with the customer name, but it also put the cursor down here where I could just start typing and building my sales order. And this is something that we call quick item entry inside the sales order, and it's just to help you rapidly build sales orders so you can see just how easy it is to type. Now, and if you type things that don't exist out there, it will automatically populate the search and help you go find it. So that's kind of an overview of how all of that works. Let's see if we've got any more questions out there. No, I don't see any. I hope that we covered all yours, Mosey, as far as the CRM and the customers and the social and how all of that kind of ties together. That's one of the reasons that we call this an ERP, is it does have a lot of information in here. There's a lot to know and a lot to digest. A lot of times we will do demos for customers in verticals just on certain sections. We can spend an hour on the CRM, an hour on the sales. It can go very in depth, especially depending on what you are and how you do it. You know, you've got tools that come with the desktop like projects that will help you manage projects inside of there. So whether or not you're a hard goods distributor or you're providing services, that kind of thing, projects will help you with a lot of that stuff. To-dos where you can do internal communications, the social desktop. There's just a whole variety of tools in here that help you kind of fulfill any needs that you have for any specific vertical that you may be engaged in. All right, so I think that's going to pretty much cover everything that we got out there. Do we have any other questions out there on the ERP? Any different section that you may want to see, something that is distribution specific that you may have a request for, or a webinar that you may want to see? Any different verticals that you may want to talk about? If we can get the demand, would love to do some for just tile, just electrical, just plumbing. We're growing a base of different customers in all these verticals. So we've got live customers out there that are out there providing us feedback on them, and we're more than happy to cover this for anybody that wants to see it, or if you have some areas that are specific that you're not finding anything on the market out there that meets your needs, odds are we've got it. And if we don't have it, we can certainly talk to you about what it would take to actually create it. All right, so let me see. I'm going to pop the questions up. All right, Mosi, thank you for attending. Glad that we got your questions answered. If you got anything further, feel free to hit us up. That of maintenance, workflow, and if it involves both kinds. Let me see if I get this one right here, Mosey. Maintenance, please. Workflow, and if it involves both kinds of maintenance. You'd have to define maintenance for me a little bit there, Mosey. Are you talking about like repair? Because we do have a lot of customers that do repair type things, which utilize work orders, which xTuple is fully geared for. So we do have hydraulic hose distributors that may wind up doing repair work on different types of material, as well as selling items off the shop floor. It winds up being a little bit different flavor, and you would tie work orders to the sales orders, and then those work orders would have any process controls or repairs that was done. And that can get very specific extremely quickly there, Mosey. So if you got any specifics on that, you'd like to talk about, be more than happy to kind of do a sidebar with you on that, or maybe even set up a webinar for that. All right. I think unless somebody else has any other questions, I think that's about everything that we need to cover today. All right. Thank you, Mosey. I appreciate the attendance. Bruce, thank you for showing. And if you guys got any follow-up questions, verticals you want to see, anything distribution specific, feel free to just hit us up at sales. I'm sure it'll make its way to me, and I'd be happy to either talk to you one-on-one or schedule a webinar and set it up and see what other areas we can cover for folks. So thank you very much for attending. And if you have any follow-ups, sales@xtuple.com, feel free to send us an email. Thanks, guys, and appreciate your time.